everyone, it's Eddie. Welcome back for a new video, the part 2 of our video about heated rivalry, asking ourselves, is this good rep or bad rep? Today we're going to tackle the criticism around heated rivalry of the show and then around the show, the whole fandom and everything that is happening. Part 3 will be all about the books, the differences between the series and obviously the books, to see if the books of heated rivalry are actually fetishism or are just romance stories. Before tackling the overall criticism about the show and everything that has been said on the internet for quite a while now, let's tackle one of the questions that has been asked to me. Can a woman talk about heated rivalry and ask herself, is this good rep or bad rep? How much power do I have and why can I, as a woman, can talk about that? Of course, a gay man will always have more legitimate opinions than me, a queer woman. Of course, I just want to watch movies, I want to read books, I want to watch series, and ask myself, is what we're seeing on screen out of stereotypes or something genuinely good for queer people? You should be able to talk about any subject, no matter what it is, as long as you're making proper researches and as long as you're not claiming to be the higher power and the only one who's right. Which is not what I did. I don't claim to be right. I don't claim to have the higher power. That's just my opinion. YouTubers, content creators, don't have higher powers. They are not gods. They are no one. They're just people sharing what they want to share. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. That's totally fine. If you don't agree with my opinion or anything like that, that's fine. My channel is an invitation for everyone to discuss about things. I gave a question. Is this good rep or bad rep? Is this good rep or bad rep? I'm giving you an answer and I want you to give me an answer back. This is not a one way. This is a two way. This is between you and me and our opinions and what we think about it. There's someone that gave me a thoughtful comment under that video. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for answering the question too. Thank you for communicating, because this is what I want to do. This is not only about my opinion. This is what I think and what I believe after, reading and after, reading the criticism, after seeing the show, after analyzing the show. This is just my conclusion to things. You should also give me a conclusion. You should have an opinion, for example, on depression. You should think about depression and ask yourself, if you see a depression depiction on a series, is this really how you depict depression, or is this just really stereotyped? The same way we do it with autism, the same way we do it with every other type of societal issues or mental health or sexuality, because that's just how criticism work. That's just how analyzing media work. I've seen both opinions. This is good rep, this is bad rep, from both gay men. So me as a person, I just want to find an answer in my own opinion about it, and I'm sharing it with you. That's simply all it is. We're going to talk about the fandom first, and then we're going to go into the criticism of the show, because there's less criticism of the show than there's criticism of the fandom and what happens in the fandom. So I'm going to tackle that first, because there's a lot more than that first. I think the second most obvious thing I want to talk about is fetishism. I think we need to, so I'm going to read you a definition of what fetishism is. A behavior in which someone shows a sexual interest in an object or in a part of the body other than the sexual organ. Behavior in which someone has so much interest in an objective or activity that they spend an unreasonable amount of time thinking about it or doing it. For example, there is a fetishism for sports in our society. Does not mean it's definitely bad, by the way. In some societies, the act of worshipping an object because it is believed to have a spirit or special magical powers. That's also part of the fetishism. What we talk about when we say that a big part of the fandom, or at least a very loud part of the fandom, are fetishist, is the second definition. It's not about the sexual aspect, it's more the behavior in which someone has so much interest in an object or activity that they spend an unreasonable amount of time thinking about it or doing it. That does not mean that it's inherently bad. For example, people love sports in general. There's a lot of there's a lot of noise around sport. That does not make it inherently bad. But with the act of fetishism also comes the act of you become so obsessed with something that you have a tendency to have very strong opinions, to have very strong stereotypes, and your very own idea on how things work. Unfortunately, what happened after Heated Rivalry became so big is that a lot of people in the fandom took it upon themselves to enter the actors' real life. We're no longer talking about characters, we're no longer discussing about Hylia's storyline, Shane as a character, the autism, the portrayal, etc. We're not talking about that anymore. We're shifting in, oh, is Yutsun doing this? Is Connor with Yutsun? Are they dating? I think they're dating. No, they are dating. They're absolutely dating. Look at them, they are dating. Or look at Francois, which is the only, if I'm not wrong, actor of the show that is openly queer. And then belying him because he doesn't follow your own personal ideal of what a queer man is. To the point of death threats, to the point of belying. Same thing with Yutsun and Connor, to the point where people stalk their entire existence on the internet. This is becoming fetishism. You're so obsessed with it. And on top of that, it's okay to be obsessed with something, to have an actor that you like, etc. But we're no longer talking about this here. We're talking about you, the person who watched a show, defying the stereotype of what being gay is, and what people want from gay men, and how people got scared of that norm against them, end up having trouble being together because of the toxicity among them, or in hockey. You end up reproducing this toxic environment in real life after watching its effect on screen. Wow. It's people that are completely obsessed and treating Connor as if it was a child who can be friends with Francois. I hate saying Francois in an English way, so I'm going to say Francois as in the French way. You cannot dictate what people do in their real life because they're not doing anything wrong. They just hang out and exist. If they date or not, doesn't matter. If Connor is queer or not, doesn't matter. If Yutsun is with Connor, it doesn't matter. If he has a girlfriend, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. Their private lives and your ideals of what a gay man is not their problems. It's you that should work on that. You guys are stalking people. You're stalkers. You're obsessive. You people often give rhetorics. For example, acting like Francois is a predator is the biggest and highest homophobic rhetoric that you could ever give to someone. The belief that queer men are automatically predators for absolutely no fucking reasons. I have two things. Women are the ones who watches Heated Rivalry the most. And second, people are not watching sapphic movies or shows that include sapphic enough. First and foremost, I think Heated Rivalry as a show had 52% of women watching it before it exploded, and after that it was, I think, 70-80%. Women are the biggest consumers of romance. That's it. That's the answer. Men and women are educated very differently in society and therefore have two very different way of seeing romance, and women are the biggest consumer of that in general, of the romance genre. Women being more open-minded to homosexuality and queer people than men are. Women are also more open-minded into reading topics like those. I just want to say that most of the time the negative option, for example, right now with the influx of fetishizers, the influx of all of the bad people that have been stalking, etc., you are under the impression that there's a lot of evil women and women should not partake in that. But in reality, it's just a very loud minority. A really loud minority. Because if you shut them up for a second and you actually look at the grand picture, you have things like those happenings all around me, all around us. There's a lot of positive impact and a lot of people watching it, liking it. Now let's tackle the controversy about people disliking the fact that women loving women shows are way less watched. That's something that is very true. Sapphic relationship, lesbians relationship in general, are present in media, and I think the most people talked about was Pluribus. Oh, you don't talk enough about Pluribus, but Pluribus is the most watched shows right now on Apple TV, if I'm not wrong. So yes, people do watch it. But Pluribus, if I'm not wrong, is not Heated Rivalry or romance show. That's not the main focus on Pluribus, right? Heated Rivalry is one of the exceptions that ended up exploding in the queer community. There's not a lot of gay shows that have been exploding. There's Heartstopper, which also included a sapphic romance, and after shifted with the question of the gender, a gay show, but that also included a lot of different sexualities, a lot of different genders, a lot of different behaviors, and it's a very diverse show that I think should be more appreciated, in my opinion. But Young Royals, I think, is also a show that exploded in the queer community and that people watched a lot. Then Heated Rivalry. There's a lack of interest in sapphic shows that includes lesbians, etc. But trying to say that they have no popularity at all would be a complete lie, though. So don't go too much, because they are popular, just not as much as the ones who includes 2 boys or 2 men, which is a truth. A lot of those are also stopped. There's a lot of shows that never really go beyond 1 season, and because of that you can't really go into, trying to go somewhere with it or with its popularity, because it is stopped. They didn't continue it, and that is not a problem of audience. A lot of shows actually have a lot in high audience. Just, for example, Netflix is the streaming service, or the one who creates it, who decides to stop. The standards were not met or whatever. It happened to Shadow and Bone, for example. There was supposed to be a 3rd season, and there was a high audience, but they didn't follow through. And unfortunately, this happens a lot with women-loving women media. So how to bring popularity? Heated Rivalry did not get its popularity because of their ads or because of how they made their promo, but because people started to make edits, because people start to talk about it, and that's what that's what made all of it just explode. That's how people talked about it. So if you want people to watch more women-loving women shows, I recommend you to make more edits and to talk about it more, especially in positive lights. To make people interested, you have to talk about it in a either constructive way or either in a positive light. Otherwise, people won't feel like watching it. So instead of trying to shoot at Heated Rivalry, shoot at people who refuses completely to watch lesbian shows, and also Netflix, who refuses to continue women-loving women shows. Don't shoot at the wrong people. Don't shoot at your own community, because it's not Heated Rivalry and Heated Rivalry existence that makes women-loving women shows not watched. That's not that. But let's go about the criticism of the show. I think one of the main criticism that I talked about in my last video comes with the idea that this show is just for women to watch and gay porn, because it's not a real depiction of how sex goes between 2 men. And because of that, obviously, Jacob Tierney, the creator and the director of Heated Rivalry, talked about the gay sex scenes and said himself, "This is not a documentary. You want to watch them dudes? You want me to include Shane in the bathroom for half an hour with the fucking enema? That's not what we are doing here. We're skipping that part." And yes, of course, it's realistic. But like I said last time in my video, I'm a bit tired of this realism that goes around with queer people and queer shows in general. Why do we need extreme realism for queer shows? Why are we trying to nitpick on everything that exists in queer shows? Because it's not analyzing media. This is nitpicking. And nitpicking to trying to find criticism on queer media, specifically queer media, comes from a weird place. Because do you think straight sex is portrayed realistically in shows? Sex scenes, no matter what the sexuality is, are never never meant to be realistic. It's just meant to be here showing how hot the scene is and how they're having pleasure. Point to the line, or using it as a plot device and trying to understand where they are emotionally, etc. But I think there's a lot of problems with the nitpicking of realism in shows, and that's how you end up having queer storylines that are really bad, trying to follow a realism. The criticism around episode 3 and the beginning of episode, I think it's 5, with Scott's speech. I'm tired. I'm tired. Yes, it's true that the pacing being stopped completely by Scott and Kip kind of feels weird and not really, homogeneous. I understand that completely. However, really annoys me because it stems from the same fetishism that they exist right now on Francois, Connor, and Hudson. It's all about them having an ideals of what gay people should be, and once they're set into believing that only things like Shane and Ilya are interesting, the big meaning that Scott and Kip have in this story is extremely important. Scott is one of the characters that brings the very big most question problems to you, the audience that are not queer, to you, the audience that are the one watching, is directly multiple times talking to you and about you, and you're not realizing that you're doing the exact same thing, is talking about, making reference about. I don't know, maybe the fact that you find those episodes and those ones bad maybe means that you're not actually listening to what the show has to say. Of course, I understand preferring one couple to another. That's totally fine, having opinions and all that. But the way people reacted to it and how mean people started to get because of it is where you start to move a line. That's when you start to actually just disregard completely just being a preference to being homophobic. Like I said, I didn't see that much criticism about the show. I think it's always the same thing returning about the sex scenes. It's one of the things that is the most controversial about the show, and how sex is portrayed in it. That's what I've seen the most. And the most people talking about it in reality, talking about that, or the female presents, the fact that women are the ones watching the show most of the time. I don't know, maybe it's time to let it go. It's a good show. Look at the ratings. Look at the ratings of the show. It's not bad. It's a really good show. It's well made. A lot of care was put into it. It's a sweet story. It's hot. So I want to tackle some critics that I saw in this article. So commenters have noted that both the show and the books have attracted a large female audience. The Wine Moms, as writer-director John Tierney had dubbed them. But so much attention to female fandom risk overshadowing what a bountiful gift Hitted Rivalry is to the gays, wrote David Rooney in The Hollywood Reporter. That becomes increasingly apparent as each successive episode taps into richer veins of queer experience concerning the fight between desire and self-denial. He added, the combination of sex positivity and Sweeney romantic wish fulfillment makes Hitted Rivalry hugely satisfying, taking it far beyond the notion of Kenyan gay orky smut, as it's been reductively called. Here, David Rooney is right. You guys are talking so much about women and the sex that we're completely forgetting what the story is about. And that is a problem. Talk about what is good. It's not just Canadian gay okay smut, like he said. It's incredibly important. And that's what I tried to explain in my last video. That the show is not just about gay porn. And if you're not comfortable with sex, it's fine. Don't mistake I'm not comfortable with sex to this show is just porn. Because it's not. If you're unable to actually see and feel the story within, that's a you problem, and that's a media literacy problem, and not a show problem. Someone say its understanding of gay life is frozen in the past. I don't agree with that. Frozen in the past, but is it really? Of course we're more progressive today. Of course there's more But the story happens first in 2008. That's when the story starts. So if you apply 26 rules to 2008, no, that doesn't follow. That doesn't follow. In contrary, the show that happens in 10 years shows well how you come from a place of people not doing it and not being able to express who they are, to Scott being able to show to television that he is gay and in love with a man, and that's complete. How I hate people who do this. If you can hear that, the background noise. I hate when people do this.
You're not impressing anyone, okay?
And as Scott is able to finally say the truth, well, everyone is becoming more accepting. It's showing real life here. And the show evolved around 2008 to 2018, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, it's 10 years. And no, in 2018, things were not like 2026. It's almost, again, 10 years separation. It's 8 years. And things change a lot in 8 years. But with the way the political movement is going here in the Western world, and how many countries still doesn't have gay marriage as legal, I don't think it's stuck in the past. It's a very real sentiment. The idea that, for example, Shane is feeling watched a lot, he should be an example for people, and there's this pressure on him of not being like people want him to be, makes him unable to accept who he is. If you want to understand why this show has become our community's equivalent of a cultural earthquake, the answer is that watching a gay couple be mildly boring and in love is still radical, he said. Yeah, that's also upset. Like, the show is literally just them falling in love, and yet it made such a ruckus. And we're here talking about whether or not this is a good show because they portray sex in it. It's like, do you realize how ridiculous that is? Because yes, I meant the whole thing about analyzing it, etc. because I like analyzing shit. But really, are we asking questions here? A show created by a gay man? A fiction show about romance? What are we even doing? I think that's quite it with the main criticism that I've seen and read about. All of the other criticism that I've seen is from people that have not watched the show. So I don't take their criticism into account, because how can you talk about something that you've never seen? That's why I made the first part about analyzing it. I can't talk about something and reach to a conclusion if I didn't see it. So I'm going to answer the question based on the series. So that's my first answer. Based on the series, is this show good rep or bad rep? And I'm going to say good rep. Has been just about them being in love and getting together. This is one of the first shows that has been so popular, who just follow the codes of a romance story exactly like the straight ones. And I don't think you guys understand how important that is. For queer stories, even while still representing their hardship, are treated like any kind of other love stories. Because they are like any kind of other stories. So I hope you enjoyed this video to talk about the whole criticism. I didn't want to nitpick every little criticism. I wanted to pick the major ones that we keep seeing everywhere that are all the same and to talk about them. And yeah, I felt like it was needed to be addressed. I hope I didn't talk too much. And I hope you liked it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming. Have a great day, night, whatever. Goodbye.